Norway maple is a large deciduous canopy tree that can grow to be up to 90 feet tall. It's known for its oval or rounded crown that has like a lot high density of leaves. It forms a very heavy, dense leaf canopy that tends to shade out a lot of the native understory of the forest as it has become more and more naturalized. It's native to most of Europe and Western Asia. It really runs from central France into Central Asia Minor and from southern Norway, where it gets its name from, in Sweden, to northern Spain, Italy, and the Balkans. It was introduced to Britain in around 1683 and then brought over to North America in the mid 1700s as an ornamental shade tree and as a street tree. It was then later introduced, as you can see, to the northwestern part of the United States in the 1870s. And it now exhibits a broad distribution in the US due to its extensive planting as a street and ornamental tree and a successful naturalization to nearby woodlots, forest edges, roadsides, and fragmented forests. In terms of its ecology, habitat, and threats, it does grow best in forests with moist, deep, fertile soils, but it can even fare well in unhealthy or nutrient poor soils by essentially creating novel root structures. It can grow on slopes that would otherwise be prone to erosion. It's tolerant of a wide range of temperature extremes, and so performs well in open, hot areas such as parks, lawns, and along streets, as I mentioned before. It can successfully regenerate in deeply shaded forest understory, but really thrives in a situation where there are canopy gaps, and it can get an even more of a competitive hold. It does well in areas in which soil disturbance, soils is disturbed. It can promote its own seed germination. I will mention that the seeds are eaten by some of our native wildlife, including birds and small mammals. As I mentioned before, it's tolerant of shade and temperature extremes. And again, it's that shading property of that tall, broad leaves that create that dense shade that lowers understory biodiversity and tends to crowd out competitor trees like our native sugar maple. In terms of its reasons for invasion success, these large leaves and the dense canopy creates a high level of shade, which and they also have a very shallow root system, and so it notoriously suppresses grass growth and understory growth, and really making a dent in our native biodiversity. It's also got multiple growing season advantages. It flowers early in the spring and has early leaf outs, and its leaves are very late to fall. So it favors fertilization and its fecundity. And again, by having that longer growing season, it gives it a little added boost going into the winter as well, with the leaves remaining on the trees for a long period of time. It's got an ability to grow in a variety of different soils, from clay to loam to sand, even both acidic and alkaline conditions it can grow under. It's allelopathic, which basically means that it can release toxins which can inhibit growth of native plants and fungi. So it affects beneficial soil dwelling microbes and fungi that are growing around it. I mentioned its high seed production and also high germination rate of the seeds. Has really vigorous reproduction, and the seeds with a wide lateral dispersal due to its wings. Even these seeds can lay dormant and germinate years later. I brought up a couple of different studies here. One that was done by Patrick Martin near our area, and basically just looking at how it's impacting sapling and seedling density. So under Norway maple plots, you can see sapling density way down compared to sugar maple plots, in which you get higher densities and also much higher seedling diversity, right, in both of these types of plots. So species richness, looking at the diversity as well as density of saplings surviving. And Norway's really just having a major impact on both diversity and density of plants being able to grow in the understory. It's also very drought resistant. So there are really just a number of factors that are leading to its establishment and spread and outcompeting our native trees and forest understory plants. In terms of its key ID features, if you compared it to sugar maple, there's a couple of different ways that you can tell that you're looking at a Norway maple. If you look at the leaves themselves, Norway maples tend to be much broader of a leaf shape. Again, you got these round lobes, usually 5 points on both sugar or five main lobes on both Norways and sugars. But if you look at the leaf tips and sugar maples, they're a little bit more rounded versus like the pointed nature of Norway maples. And also, if you took off the leaf petiole or the leaf stalk, you would get a milky sap on Norways that you don't get in sugar maples. It would be run more clear. You can also look at buds during the non-growing season. In sugar maples, they tend to have more scales on them, sort of a rounded tip at in its central bud there. They're browner versus in Norway maples, they tend to be more pointed, less scales on them. And in terms of its middle bud, you can also look at its seeds. In sugar maple, it tends to have rounder seeds on them with a more acute angle between both of the wings, versus the Norway maple tends to have the wings more spread apart and flatter seeds. And if you can't actually see the seeds or the leaves on it, you can also tell by the bark. Sugar maples are scaly, less pattern bark, versus Norway maples, which have a more like highly pattern grooved look to them. If you're interested in learning more about those key ID features, definitely check out our field ID video, and also tell some of the differences as to why Norway is outcompeting some of our native sugar maples and red maples in our region. So definitely check out that field ID video.